Faces of Abortion is the only television program of its kind that shows the powerful, real-life stories of women, men, and families who have suffered the devastation of abortion. Faces of Abortion touches hearts and changes lives in over 125 nations. Faces of Abortion is a program that will help you with healing from the heart and hope for the future. You will be given practical steps for healing in your life and help to end the suffering of abortion.
So it just overwhelmed me. And I thought the only way to escape the pain was to take my life.
I had a fear that I wouldn't be able to have my own children.
It brings heartache. It brings hurt.
And I knew they were tearing my baby apart.
I remember the cold feeling of the room.
I remember laying there and I just said to myself that I will never forgive myself for what I'm doing.
I believe that my life was spared that night just so that I could be here right now and say abortion hurts women.
Welcome to Faces of Abortion. I'm your host, Cindy Collins, and again today I am with my co-host, Alan Parker, who is president of the Justice Foundation, and Clayton Trotter, who is general counsel of the Justice Foundation. I know we have an extremely powerful show today, Alan.
It really is going to be deep and intense. We're going to hear from Yvonne, who's going to tell us about her abortion that occurred during her marriage. And then we're going to hear from Senator Ben Nevers of Louisiana, a real champion for women and families. And he has a powerful message for elected officials that I think everyone needs to hear.
That's right, Alan. I believe that they are both voices for our nation and for this generation. And now let's go ahead and hear Yvonne's words in her own words.
Hi, I'm Yvonne. On June 5th, 1981, at 21 years of age, I married my childhood sweetheart of 7 years. We packed up the few belongings we had and moved from New York to Texas to begin our life together. My fairy tale life ended a few months later, however. I can remember being so excited when the home pregnancy test came back positive. My husband, however, didn't share that same excitement. His answer was abortion. I was devastated. A few days later, I found myself sitting in an abortion facility. I don't know why I didn't push back and say that I wouldn't do it. It's a decision I'll forever regret. I remember sitting in the waiting room. There were several people there, but I remember feeling so alone and made no eye contact with anyone there. And then they called my name. I was brought back to a room, asked to lie on a table, and put my feet into stirrups. And then they inserted an instrument inside of me, and I heard the noise of what sounded like a vacuum as they sucked the life of my child out of me. Not only did my baby die that day, but a piece of myself died as well. The doctor never made any contact with me at all. He never said anything to me. I left the facility and drove home with my husband, whom at that point I began to have just a great hatred for. And then the tears started, and I just cried for weeks and weeks. Everything reminded me of a baby. And so then to function in life, I went and was hypnotized. After the hypnosis, the self-loathing took on a whole new look. I began to drink, experiment with drugs, flirted with men, which later led to promiscuity. And then I became obsessed with my weight, took laxatives. It would make myself throw up so that I would become thin and thought I would become beautiful. And then in 1983, I gave birth to a beautiful baby girl. It should have been one of the happiest times of my life, but I fell into deep depression. And I couldn't understand what was happening to me. Why was I struggling so much with this inner turmoil? And I can remember one night sitting on the kitchen floor with a butcher knife held to my wrist for the second time, wanting so desperately to die and to end these feelings. But I couldn't take my life. The hatred for my husband only increased. And then in 1986, I became pregnant again by another man. And then I chose abortion. This time the abortion was my choice. A few months later, 6 months later, my marriage ended in divorce. I later moved in with this man. And in 1988, we became married. And later that year, I became pregnant again and gave birth to that child in 1989. While I was pregnant with this child, we relocated. And as a going away gift, one of my coworkers gave me the gift of a Bible. One day while reading God's Word, I asked the Lord to forgive me of my sins. He came into my life, He forgave me, but somehow I couldn't forgive myself for the abortions. So I spent from 1989 to 2001 knowing that I had been forgiven, and it really was the start of something new in my life. But I still carried the guilt and the shame of what I had done, and I told no one. In 2001, at a revival at my church, God spoke in my spirit from His word in John 8:32, "Then you shall know the truth, and the truth shall set you free." I was free. It was just the most incredible feeling that I'd ever experienced. I went home that night and shared with my 2 daughters about the abortions. They cried with me and for me. They cried for their brother Austin, that they didn't know and would never know this side of heaven. They cried for their sisters, Melissa and Michelle, because I believe my second abortion would have been twins. And then the next day at that revival, I gave my public testimony for the first time. I will never have the opportunity this side of heaven to know those children. And our family is not complete, but I do know that God has them in heaven and I will see them there. What I would say to you is I know that it may be difficult, that this pregnancy you have right now, abortion is not the answer. The child you're carrying in your womb has been fearfully and wonderfully placed there by God. You have a choice. The choice is life. Your child has worth. You have worth. Abortion is not the answer. Choose life.
You've just heard Yvonne's story about how abortion has affected her life and how she just wanted her husband to support her shortly after they had gotten married, to carry their baby together to term, and what a joy this child could have brought to them. I know that we have viewers today that may be in a similar situation as Yvonne, maybe suffering from the pain of abortion, maybe their husband